the generational difference, is choosing different criteria for success.
Yeah.
It's
that's
not
interesting, but I don't think it's necessarily. I think I agree with you that there's more propensity for it to be in our generation, in this like kind of multimedia generation. But I think it's more of a personal thing, because there are lots of people who have. Let's bring it back to beer for a second, who have created very successful businesses who essentially know what they want to do. They want to make money and they want to sell to someone bigger, and they want to, get there and get there fast and make it, make it a success by their own lights. I think that as different people, I think all of us are very creative people in some way or another, and that we do get our kicks from expressing ourselves through that kind of artist sketchbook way of sort of discovering things. And they might not be the most perfect.
It's a kind of
things
social
in the
currency,
world.
though, that isn't it? That kind of discovery. I found this guy. It's that kind of social currency that people deal in.
Yeah, and there is a tendency for it to sound a little.
I was just going to say
something I shouldn't there.
I was just going to say something about money, and that was that my goal is, if I did have loads of money, which I don't, then I would spend it all on what I'm doing anyway. So what I'm doing now is great because I get to do what I want to do, and it's free. So it's a different thing, isn't it? I guess it's personal, as Chris was saying.
So are there, comparing yourselves to other brewers, are there ways, since you're in this, I call this explore, expand, extract, that's the 3 X's, are there ways in which your brewery is optimized to be able to run experiments with new ideas much more quickly than other breweries?
Because we're small.
Well, I think, it's mainly because we don't have someone, it's not a top-down business where we have someone who says that they want something to get out of it. Everyone at some level in the business, whether they're people who have money invested in it or whether they're people who have themselves invested in it, have the same ethos, and we're all interested in being able to experiment. And that doesn't mean that we don't get great satisfaction out of producing great products and that we don't strive to make our processes better and ensure all of that is kind of par for the course as far as I see it. But the creative element just allows us to give a little essence of ourselves in what we produce to people, rather than feeling like once we've nailed something down, that's it. Just keep phoning it in for a while and people will be happy.
Do you have a story of a time when you went from idea to product particularly quickly?
All the time, every week, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, there's yeah, we
just
do
make it up as they go.
We do just make it up as we go along. No, I think we have, and I think it would be disingenuous to represent us as that we essentially are just there, kind of just throwing stuff into a pot every week, and it turns up and it's we're happy with how it went. I think it's more a case that we do have some very solid recipes that we've developed, but we kind of riff off those a little bit. This is something we've done. What if we tweak this parameter, or what if we put a little bit more of this in here, or how about if we just consider this, turn the 2D object around and consider it from another side, and then we look at it. I think the things that we like to do we're very much actually into, from the brewing side, we're very much into history and traditional recipes. We'll take a recipe and look at it, and then simply look at it through a different prism and say, what could we do with this to make it our own? And what could we do with this that we think is something a little bit more unique? What do we like about this, but we could improve upon?
So how long does it take from the idea for this to in a bottle on a shelf?
Let's see. For this stuff here, approximately 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And a big brewer would be?
Well, the time in which they turn around the beer is probably the same, and
No, like a new recipe.
I don't know how long people spend on sort of recipe development. There are people. I know there are people in large breweries who it is their job only to be in recipe development, and I imagine what they do is they do essentially very small pilot brews. They may do 3 or 4 different ones before they push things in a certain direction, and it probably takes quite a long time in that experimental kind of research phase before they're allowed to put it onto a scale where it's going to cost a lot of money to produce and a lot more money if it doesn't sell and or isn't able to be sold. So I think probably there's a lot more caution at that kind of level. I'm sure they could produce it quicker than we do, but I imagine it's probably more like in the region of 6 months to a year probably.
And that's accords with my experience, which is how much you have to lose really changes how you behave. If the big breweries launching a beer means they have millions of dollars at risk, then they take longer, they learn slower.
Do you think it's quite an interesting, like in the wider world, just spreading away from breweries? But it's kind of a good, like, kind of example of it. Being small is quite good, isn't it? It means you're flexible. You're not going and kind of quite. You're more agile. And do you think that means that we see this exponential kind of curve in terms of technology and how fast it's rising? Do you think that's anything to do with the fact that it's generally pioneered by small companies? People that are flexible and small, so they can just work faster and more efficiently because they've got less luggage, essentially.
So I think that in the software world, the causality actually runs backwards. There's lots of small companies that aspire to being big, slow, lumbering companies, and I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And I've fought against that for most of my professional career. But somehow that's if we were a real company, we'd have the release process and we'd have documentation, printing, review process, blah, 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 blah.
It's quite a strange aspiration, isn't it? It's to kind of...
Seems so to me.
Yeah.
I've never understood it, but yeah.
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 But do you think that that's been is it? I guess it's probably always been that way, but because I've only lived now, it seems like, there's...
That's true of all of us.
I'm a Buddhist, though, so
that's
before
true of
I
all
was
of
a
us,
bee.
son.
So.
Yeah.
No, but I think it's... Sorry.
I've only lived now.
Yeah. I'm pretty stupid, really, so...
There you go.
Anyway, I think, but it seems like, that... Again, talking to like, my old man and my grandfather and my mother and all that kind of stuff, they've lived before me. But they always say how fast everything's moving, and I guess, is that true? I don't know, maybe it isn't, but... Well, if it is, then is that relevant to the fact that there's lots of small companies, individuals doing things off their own steam that's kind of... And the internet being an enabler for that as well, that's kind of driven technology forward in a really kind of fast pace.
Well, in the software world, we have this weird contradiction where two people in a garage do something and they send out a new version 3 times a day, but they feel ashamed of it.
Yeah.
Like as if somehow that's not real software development. If only we were real software developers, we'd create a plan and we would execute every item of that plan exactly to the right. Yeah. If you were better programmers, you'd be able to estimate. And I didn't say that other word, guys. The words Uncle Kent uses, don't use those on the playground, okay? Thank you. But somehow we feel. I just thought I'd throw that in. Somehow we feel like if we were really good programmers, we would lose that connection with our users.
Yeah.
Like how does that, it doesn't make any sense, but we feel ashamed of actually making mistakes in public and fixing them, taking responsibility for our own errors, as if that's somehow a failing.
It's like this kind of idea that, like when I started being, an illustrator and working with these guys stuff, I actually thought that there was like some kind of like book I should read to understand how to do those things, like, oh God, yeah, so I read this and then like that's how you're meant to do things. And I think that, from what you were saying at the start of the conversation with, this kind of way of doing things, do you think everyone you just realise at a point that nobody's got a clue what they're doing. Nobody has an idea about what is the kind of, you just kind of do it and you kind of have a go and then that ends up being the thing that maybe a lot of people before you have done, but there's no kind of actual, there's no kind of description for it or prescription for it. You can't, there's nothing that you can kind of go, if I follow these steps, then I can become an illustrator, or I can, do you know what I mean? You just have to have a go,
Right, I say success is always a surprise.
Yeah.
But as human beings, we want to rationalize it as if I'm successful, it's because I was such a genius. I mean, obvious.
Well, yeah, I mean that is obvious. Yeah.
And so we look back and we say, oh, well, I knew this idea was going to work, even though we knew the previous 10 ideas were going to work too, and we were wrong all those times. We just conveniently forget that.
Yeah.